Hey y'all, my name is Christian. I'm a millennial, and this is the Millennial Mind. Millennials get a bad rap for being lazy, non productive members of society. We also get told that our opinions are warped and don't matter. This podcast is designed to express a point of view on the world as a whole, but from a millennial's perspective. I will talk about love, current events, pretty much everything that comes to mind. Come join me on this journey on speaking my mind, and I would love for you to speak your mind as well. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere, even on platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, you can download the Anchor app, that's ANCHOR, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey y'all. Welcome to another episode of The Millennial Mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of speaking my mind, and I hope that all of you are speaking your mind as well. I hope that you all have enjoyed this Black History series that I've done over the past few weeks. I know that I have, learning about different individuals who maybe the spotlight wasn't on them, like the Martin Luther Kings and the Rosa Parks of the world. So I hope that you're enjoying this. This episode will be the last episode for the month of February, because February is almost over. This will be the last episode of our Black History series, and I am going to jump right into it. We've been talking about the Nobodies, quote unquote, of Black history. And the first person I would like to start off with is Mary Mahoney. She was the first licensed Black nurse in the U.S. I thought of her because my mom's a nurse, so I know that she knows all about Mary Mahoney. So, Mama, if you're listening, this is for you. So, first licensed Black nurse in the U.S. in 1879. She couldn't work in the hospital because of the discrimination people of color faced in the 19th century, so she spent years as a private nurse instead. Later, she co-founded the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses in 1908 and gave its convention's opening speech the very next year. And after the 19th Amendment was ratified years later, she became one of the first women registered to vote in Boston. So thank you, Miss Mahoney, for your work in the medical field as a nurse, because if you didn't pave the way, my mom would not be a nurse, and so many other African American women would not be nurses. So thank you. The next person I want to talk about is Gwendolyn Brooks. She was one of the most highly regarded, highly influential, and widely read poets of 20th century American poetry. In fact, she was the first African American to win a Pulitzer Prize for poetry in 1950. Her poems describe the everyday life of Black Americans in cities like Chicago, where she grew up. And I have a sample of her poem, and it goes like this. We are things of dry hours and the involuntary plan, grayed in and gray, Dream makes a giddy sound, not strong, like rent, feeding a wife, satisfying a man. But could a dream send up through onion fumes in white and violet, fight with fried potatoes, and yesterday's garbage ripening in the hall, flutter, or sing an aria down these rooms? Even if we were willing to let it in, had time to warm it, keep it very clean, anticipate a message, let it begin? We wonder, but not well, not for a minute. Since number 5 is out of the bathroom now, we think of lukewarm water, hope to get in it. So Gwendolyn Brooks, she was definitely one of the pioneers in poetry, especially in African American poetry. And there is a school in Illinois, an elementary school that I know for sure, that is named after her. So she was very influential in the creative arts. And we thank Miss Gwendolyn Brooks for the path that she created for poets and anyone else who is in the creative arts. So thank you, Miss Brooks. Another individual that I would like to talk about is Alexa Kennedy. So Dr. Alexa Kennedy became the first black woman neurosurgeon in the U.S. in 1981. She helped save thousands of lives, mostly children, during her 20-year career. Her home state of Michigan recognized her milestones by inducting her into the Women's Hall of Fame in 1989, and she was named Teacher of the Year by the Children's Hospital of Michigan. So she wasn't just any doctor, she was a neurosurgeon, which I heard is one of the more difficult surgeons that you can become. And to become the first African American woman to do that was huge. And then to see that her primary practice dealt with children, which I know seeing children go through certain things can be difficult. But she was a pioneer in neurology. And you've never heard of her before. Most people have never heard of her before. But thankful for her, because now individuals who are African American, whether they're male or female, have a path that they can follow thanks to Dr. Kennedy. Moving right along, for those of you who are into sports, we have Althea Gibson, who was the first black woman to compete at Wimbledon in 1951, opening doors for black athletes everywhere. And she didn't just compete. Her victories are legendary. She went on to win singles titles at the U.S. Open and Wimbledon in 1957 and 1958. And the Associated Press named her Female Athlete of the Year those same 2 years in a row. In 2016, Serena Williams recognized her accomplishments when she tweeted, "Althea Gibson paved the way for all women of color in sport. And though Gibson is most famous for her tennis skills, that wasn't the only sport she played. Gibson became a professional golfer in 1963, just years after winning her tennis titles." Wow. And you know what? I'm not on Twitter, so I did not see this tweet from Serena Williams. But to know that there was a first black woman who competed in Wimbledon, and not only competed, but was victorious, is something to be proud of. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure how she played, because I know with Serena Williams, you know, when she hits the ball, it's like whoa, it's like it's hitting your soul. So I don't know if Althea Gibson had the same power, but I'm sure that in order for her to be as victorious as she was, I know that she has some kind of flair that other tennis players did not. So thank God for her for paving the way for people like Serena Williams, because if there was no Althea Gibson, there will be no Serena Williams. So moving right along, there's one more person that I want to talk about, and this person actually passed away not too long ago, maybe a few days ago. She's one of our hidden figures. If you haven't seen that movie, please watch it. But her name is Katherine Johnson. So Katherine Johnson was one of the history-making, barrier-breaking NASA mathematician depicted in the movie Hidden Figures. So she helped our nation enlarge the frontiers of space, even as she made huge strides that also opened doors for women and people of color in the universal human quest to explore space. The work of the women that she worked with, which was Dorothy Vaughan and Mary Jackson, altered the country's history, but their names were largely unknown until the movie Hidden Figures received acclaim. Johnson began working at NASA's predecessor, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, in 1953 at the Langley Laboratory in Virginia. She said her greatest contribution to space exploration was making the calculations that helped sync Project Apollo's lunar lander with the Moon Orbiting Command and Service Module. In other words, helping to put men on the moon in 1969. She was also the first woman in the Flight Research Division to receive credit as an author of a research report for her work with Ted Skopinski on detailing the equations describing an orbital spaceflight. She did trajectory analysis for Alan Shepard's 1961 mission Freedom 7, which was America's first human spaceflight. She was also known for work that greatly contributed to the first American orbital spaceflight, piloted by John Glenn. So she did a lot of work for NASA, and this excerpt that I read on her doesn't really do her justice. You have to see the movie to really understand her contribution to men walking on the moon. If she wasn't there, John Glenn would not have been able to do his thing. Neil Armstrong would not have been able to do his thing. She was a huge contributor to NASA and the U.S.'s work on getting to the moon. And with her passing away, even though she was 101, Lord, she was 101. So even though she was 101, the work that we saw her do through the movie, I just wish that we could have really given her flowers earlier on in her life than, closer to her death. But if you haven't seen the movie Hidden Figures, please see it. It's a really good movie, and for those of us who are African American, it makes us proud to be African Americans. For someone to be that smart in mathematics, because the equations that she was doing was quite difficult. Like, I like algebra, but that was on a whole nother level. So thank God for her, because she really laid the foundation for what NASA was doing at the time. So what did you all think of our Black History series? Let me know at mindofmillennials@gmail.com. You can also like our Facebook page and leave a comment there. Make sure to listen to our previous episodes on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Casts. And before I leave you today, I want to give you a quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes from Michael Jordan. He said, "I failed over and over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." One of my favorite quotes. I love it. So until next time, I will see you soon.